Hello, hello. Welcome back. This is part 3 on us trying to complete our little metric to imperial converter, or imperial to metric, or whichever way you look at it. Just convert these arbitrary numbers into a unit type that we can both understand across the world. Yay! Unity! You know, if we could all just agree on a single standard, we wouldn't even have to be doing something like this right now. But alas, we do it for the studies, and that's what's exciting for me. So, yeah. Actually, let me have a look at something. What's going on here? Just want to sort my chat out real quick. The one on stream. Because for some reason it's not quite looking the way it should. Okay, let's see if this ends up working a bit better. Message opacity at 20%. Timeout messages after 60 seconds. Is that a bit better? Yeah, there we go. It's back to being somewhat normal. You rely on things to work and then they just stop working. And let's just change it over here as well. Yeah, okay, cool, perfect. So the chat should be fine now. Because otherwise I think it was displaying it on screen forever and not disappearing, which is not something we want. In fact, actually 30 seconds might be sufficient instead of an entire minute. Let me just change it to that. There we go. See if I can give myself a PogChamp. There we go. Beautiful stuff. Okay, with that out the way, we can actually continue now. So where last did we stop? We were trying to... I had the convert handler. Remember, that's what I was working on. We had the handle number, which we pass in the number, and then we handle the whole fractions and everything. So convert was supposed to handle number the number So instead of init unit, it should be converted, or we should just call it num. Number? Value? Call it unit value maybe? Unit value equal to handle number. Oh wait, not unit value. Init num. And then give unit value to the switch case to do the actual conversions and then return the result. So that should give us what we need. Let's go ahead and update convert handler. And then let's enter like 5 and 3 and a quarter, which should give us 8. What's that? 8.25? Cannot read property 1. Wait, this has got to do with an issue of the line 51 regex. Because 0 would be... Okay, wait, so this is the input. Let's go to our regex. And our regex that we're using is the val regex, which is this. So this should be in the second part. Oops, not there. There. Yeah, so it should be matching it. Let's check details. Oh, wait. There. It's not matching. Interesting. Didn't I update this? This matches a // that matches a dot. At least one or more. And then an A to Z. Oh, the reason it's not matching is because you need kg. Or milligrams or whatever, there you go. So there's the first one, there's the second. Okay, so we're actually trying to do something weird here. Wait, line 57 was it? Line 51. That's an input. So the issue is cannot read property 1 of null. Val regex that execute input. So what are we passing to get num? In get num, we're passing an input. Input is the query, so the direct query. Let's test it with just console.log.
Wait, Hooray is following the family.
Wait, Hooray, hey! Thank you so much for the follow, I appreciate it. How are you doing? So we should console log the regex executed on input and see what we get. Because somehow index 1 doesn't exist anymore. Unless I change something. Okay, so it's null. Why? It doesn't match on the regex anymore. That is so weird. So here's our regex expression right here. Oh, I'm being a dumbass because I didn't add a unit type. There's no milliliters or kilograms or whatever. I gotta actually, that's something good to take into account. If there's no unit type, then it shouldn't be. We need to handle that. But for now, let's just see. This should give us, what did I say, 8.25. So there we go. We get the There's input, there's index 0. Okay, cool. And then we get another issue. Same issue. Cannot get... Wait, group 1 and group 2. Huh. Okay, so what I want to do is log... I want to log input 0 and I want to log input 1. And I just want to see what's in each. Don't tell me it's this space. It's not. Huh, so I changed something last time. Let's have a look at this quick, because I know I did comment out a few things. Regex didn't change, that we know. We did uncomment this under getNum. That shouldn't have changed. And then we reset the index. And then what we were doing was splitting it in the array, trimming any characters, and then putting it back together to get a number. But that shouldn't have affected the result. Something changed. But what? Let's see if I just put a 5 in there, just like standard, how it used to be. New. Huh. So there it is. That 5 milliliter is based on input 0. But property 1 is null. Why would it be null though? 5 milliliters. Okay, so let's do it without the indexing, just to see what execute would give us on just 5 milliliters. So execute would give us that array. So we get 5 milliliters, which is the initial match, then 5, then milliliters. Okay. So going 0 cannot read property 0 of null. So once you call execute, I'm wondering if it's because every time you call execute, it changes the index, and we're only updating index afterwards. So maybe because I keep calling it. Let us remove these console logs and just have the single one. And then let's log result, console.log result, and let's see what that gives us. It could just be that. Yeah, there you go. The input 5 milliliters, it's 5 in index 1. It was just that. Okay, cool. And there you go. The answer is 6.5. That was something else. That was us testing. Okay. And then reduce of empty array with no initial value. Array.reduce on line 200. Because there were no fractions. Okay, so that's something we need to handle in our logic, but at least we know what happened now. So we didn't change any of this as far as I remember. We left this all the same. Let me just confirm it's still working. Yeah, cool, perfect. So let's handle the fact that there's no fractions now. So this is handle number. Now what we're trying to do is set unit value to handle number. And I guess what we can do when we're returning, it's either... Oh, the issue is it's trying to reduce on the fraction array, but there's nothing in the fraction array. I also wonder what would happen if you try to reduce on the integer array. Maybe I should by default just have like a 0 in there. Like have them both be 0. Like just initialize them with 0. Would that work? Because it should be able to reduce on 0 and just get 0 and add 0 to the number, which shouldn't change anything. Yeah. That seemed to have solved that issue, but now test value is not a number. And why would that be? Test value. I wonder what is it then? And also, why is it 6? Where are we getting a 6 from? Oh, it's this console log handle number. So 1 and 5 is a 6. Oh, where'd the half go? Oh, and I see why that failed, yeah. So that's not actually an option, adding 0. Unless it's 2 zeros, 0 and 0 and 0, because you need to do division. But you can't divide by 0. That would give you the issue. Oh, yay, maths! Okay, that's not a solution, so we need to come up with another solution. If there are no fractions, we cannot run reduce. I wonder if I just check if fractions, would that work? Because it's an array, but an empty array should be false. It's not the same as object type. So if fractions, then we can run this. And then we need to have decimal be over here. And then we also need integer over here, and then do the same thing basically, where if integer, and then just bring that in there and set this to integer equal to. That may work, I think. See how that goes. Okay, so it doesn't work the same way. It still will pick it as an array. So fractions is empty. And if we see this console log, then we know it's still getting triggered, which is clearly the case. Yeah. Got there twice. Wait, what? Oh, of course, because the first time is for our case, the second time is for the other console log we're doing. Okay, so that's not reliable. We need to actually check the contents of if an array is empty or not. Because we can't just do if array, because the array is initialized in an empty state. So we could just check its length, I guess. So if fractions and fractions.length greater than 0. If integer and integer.length greater than 0. Whoops. No! Rewind! I don't want to rewind. Cancel. I didn't mean to do that. There you go. Okay. Now. Okay, but it's still not a number. We did get into the got here, but that was because of our test, which is that one. The only issue now is we have not a number. Get num is still 5, which is fine, but the test value that we need shouldn't we be getting test value twice? Every time I call the function? Oh no, because that's just handle number there. Let me just do that, so I know which one is which. Okay, so test case is not a number, test value is not a number. So both of them are not a number. So something that it's doing is causing it to not be a number. And the only thing that's changing is return parse integer, integer 10 plus parse float decimal. Could it be that? The fact that you... There's one way to check that. Int test equal to parse int, right? So let's see what it's actually trying to do. And then frac test equal to parse float. And then we can see where the issue is. Int test, as well as frac test. So I think when we're trying to add the two, coercing the empty array into something, I don't even know what parse float would do to an empty array. I would have just assumed we would have left it. Maybe we should cast it to number, because that should be 0 as a boolean. Okay, so the issue is the integer. The integer is not a number. The frac test is 0.5 for the first one. And in the second case, which is our one, they're both not a number because there was no fraction, which makes sense. But in our actual test example, for some reason the integer is not a number. So that's where our issue is. This alone is failing. So pass it as an integer 10. I just realized something now. We're checking on integer, which is the variable that will hold the integer value. We're not checking on the array, which is integers. My bad. Okay, what about fraction? If fractions, yes, and fraction. Okay, cool. So that would explain that. Okay, so now the fraction is, the integer is 6 and the fraction is 0.5. Perfect. So then it's 6.5. Great. Except in the second part, for some reason, it's not a number, not a number. So that would imply that whatever is coming through is an issue. So let's see what's coming through. The num. Okay, so the initial part that's coming through is our test, which is 1, 5.5, which successfully gets added to 6.5. But then the next one that gets added is just 5. Oh, hold on. Could it be because there's a space there? See that? There's a space afterwards. Could that be the case? I think what we need to do is sanitize. Where does that happen from? Get num. I think we should trim this on just either side. Result.trim. Because then we won't have a 5. We won't have that. You see that? Because now there's like the extra space. I think that's what the issue is. So if I trim it, we should now just have the 5. Let's try. Okay, so that one's fine. It was always fine. The num 5. Yeah, there you go. Cool. End test 5. Frac test, not a number. But test value is now not a number. Where's test value being logged? Test value is here. It's unit value. Unit value is handle number init num. Which is 5. Could it be that trying to reduce 5? I have a theory. Let's try 5 and 2. And oops, 5 and 2 and see if it gives us 7 without an issue. No, test value is still not a number. Okay, I thought that it might have been that reduce wouldn't have worked, but that shouldn't have been the case, and it's not the case. This is interesting. So we call handle number, we give it the init number that we're given. But then we get not a number, but it should not have ever gotten into... It should... Oh, okay, I see what's going on. We're doing the test to see what the values were, but we didn't actually do anything with the return values. So it's still trying to add pass float, which is not a number, to the number, which gives you not a number. Can we coerce it into a number? Would you pass float and then number on decimal inside of that? Let's test that. No. Still not a number. Okay, so we can't coerce it into a number. I just don't like the messy if statements now. That's necessary to get the actual values, decimal and integer. Maybe we can check on the values. But you'll still have if statements. Unless... pass float decimal is not a number. So all we're trying to do is actually add those numbers up. They already added up after these two. Wait, what happens if you... Let's check something out. What happens if you pass float? What happens if you pass float on nothing? You get not a number. Oh. And if you pass float on 0, you would get 0, right? So pass float on nothing, an empty array, would give you not a number. So what if the solution was... I don't know if that's going to cause any issues, but what if we set decimal to 0.0, right? As a float, and then 0 as the integer. So now it's got a default value, so at least then when you're trying to add them up, you're going to add pass empty integer, which even if there was no integers, it's going to be 0, so that's a valid number, plus pass float, even if there was nothing, it would be 0, which would add up and not cause not a number. And then the logic to determine whether we're actually going to handle fractions or integers is based on these checks here. So then in theory, that should work? Let's see. Yeah, there you go, test value is now 5. Cool. Great. Now the other issue that we had was when I tried to add a fraction into the mix, like let's say a quarter with the 5, that should give us 5.25. Oh no, it works now. It must have just been the fraction issue. So now we get 5.25, great. Okay, and then if I do 5, 7, and a quarter, that should give us 12? 12.25? Yeah, there you go. Cool. It's working again. Anything else? What if it's just a fraction? Let's do like a half, so that should give us 0.5. Ooh, we got 0.2. How does that work? Oh, did I do 1/5? Never mind. My bad. Whoops. A half. That was also correct. But a half, there you go, 0.5. Great. Perfect. So we get a half, 0.5. Great. What was the issue that we had in the beginning that we needed to fix? It was... Or was it like this? Oh, it was the fact that if you left out a unit, you would get an error. Because the regex won't work, because it's looking for both the value and the unit. So we need to handle that. In where did we set that? Is this, what is this? This is? What was the requirement? The requirement was if my number is invalid, returned with will invalid number. Okay, so I can return a string now? So let's do this. If Oh, we need to actually test it against the regex. Is there an easier way to do this? If input and val regex dot execute input 1, because that's what we need. So if that works, then result equal to val regex dot execute input 1, right? And we probably need to scope this here. And we need to turn this into a let, like so. Array destructuring? Why would we destructure it? Why would we use array destructuring? Val regex dot execute input 1. Use array destructuring. It's not even array. That's confusing. I'm trying to figure out why my linter wants me to use array destructuring. What are you going to destructure from? It's assuming that there's a key result in the return value from val regex? How the hell do you want me to use? Unless we do this. So we still continue with the const over there, right? And we do if not input and not val regex.execute, then return. Just leave all the logic below, right? And then things just continue as they were. So that's just our block check. So now we actually return with what they want us to return, invalid number. There. So now we shouldn't get that error message. We should just get invalid number. Wait, what? Is it still running? How is that possible? Cannot read property 1 of line 54. How is it even running if we returned? Oh, I probably need that in an else scope. But usually the return would return out of the entire function, not just the if statement. Are you telling me that it's running past that? It is. That always confuses me, because sometimes you can fully return outside the entire function, and yet this case it continues. So basically I'm gonna need an else and wrap everything else in the else. Like so. So it's either that or wait, it literally just corrected it to what I just had it. That doesn't change anything. so confused. Why did the return not work? If someone knows, please let me know. I've never had that. That should have returned. Return is supposed to completely leave the function. That is so weird. The only solution that I can think of is now to use the logical OR, which is either it's that, but if there's an error, it's 0. Well, actually, not even 0. Invalid number. I don't know if that's gonna still try to execute and fail. Yeah, it still tries to execute. Wait, can't I do ternary? Which is val regex dot execute input 1 if true, if false. How about that? Cannot read property 2 of null. What? Oh, because now we're executing it, but we haven't reset it. Oh man, this is getting complex. Because when you use execute, you need to reset the last index, because now it's trying to access. Wonder if it's the issue of synchronicity. Because it's synchronous. Could that be it? Execute? That's the only thing that I can think of. When's the error happening? Because that return should have worked. That's the only thing I could think of. Synchronous. Because then while that's still running, it gets there, then it evaluates, and then it returns invalid number. In fact, we can actually check. If we see this message, then we know that it worked. And it's asynchronous. Or would we though? Hold on, let's do this. And let's do that, okay? And then let's see where it gets. Actually, we're gonna get an error now that's undefined. Yeah. Return 0. There. Will it still run though? That's the question. Cannot read property 2 of null on. Okay, try that. Huh. Okay, so it's already moving on to the next function in the chain, so it's not that. Input is valid, so it's not if not input. We need to check if input, if there is an input, and not... Well, actually, do we need to check if there's an input? If input and not... Let's just assume there is input. We can have another check for that. If not, val regex.execute. I think I was checking for that. It's only going to run if there's no input, which there is. Okay, so it did it. There you go. Perfect. So that actually worked. It was my logic that failed. So now it's an invalid number. Now the issue with that is we need to move down the chain, because in line 79, here under get unit, it's going to want to execute on input, but the input is going to be a string, which we can verify by doing this. So you do that and you get a half. Wait, what? You got a half? That's not what it should be returning. It should have returned invalid number. How did it get a half? Result.trim. What? What value is it returning? Where the hell is it getting a half from? Okay, this is get unit. That's where get unit is failing. So get unit is under init unit. So what it does is, oh, wait, is it get unit that's failing? Yes, it is get unit. Okay, so get unit gets its logic that it passes in from input. Input is the 1.5, so that's a string, and it's called init unit. So what it's trying to do is get the unit, not the number. And there's no... Oh, that's why it's not based on anything else. So essentially we need to do the same check here, which is return invalid unit. So the same if statement here, and the requirement is to return invalid unit there. Like that. So then it doesn't even get here, and that's on number 2. I'm also thinking that we should maybe reset the index, just in case, since we are executing it. Okay, so now that shouldn't give us those 2 errors, but we need to keep working down the chain. So there we go. The number is an invalid number, and the unit is an invalid unit. Great. Perfect. So the number and units both in... Yeah, it wouldn't technically be an invalid number, because this is technically a valid number. The reason why it would be invalid is the fact that we don't know what the... We don't know what the unit type is. It would be an invalid number if you entered something like this, you know. This should report as invalid. Let me just double check. This is a random bunch of strings. So it should say invalid number. So that's correct. What I think it should do is number should be valid. If you know there's a half, we should still do something with it. But the issue that we have is our regex doesn't work on it anymore. Because our regex wants to split the number from the from that. Maybe we should just let it go through. Let's check our logic on that. So when you try to get the number, you're checking, does the regex actually work? If it doesn't, it's automatically an invalid number. And the thing is, we need this regex because if you entered something like 5 milliliters like this, we know that the first group is the units. I could enter like literally 5, 2, 3, and you would see these are all valid. We would just add them up. We would do addition. So 5 plus 3 is 8 plus 2 is 10. So that will become 10 as the value, and then ml is the milliliters, the unit type. So that is why we did it that way, so that we can easily distinguish between the two. Because if I didn't have a ml, or if I didn't have a unit type, that wouldn't be valid, because what are you trying to convert from and to? You can't just enter a number, because that's not how the converter works. You need to convert from, you know, one specific unit to another. And that is in the requirements. If if both are invalid, returned will be an invalid number. So maybe we should do that. If the regex doesn't work, invalid number and unit. Maybe we should just do that. Invalid number and unit. Or leave it as invalid number, leave the other one as invalid unit, and then we'll do a check later on. If both are invalid, then we'll return invalid number and unit. Okay. So let's leave that then there. And let's see what we need to do next. What are we trying to do here? This is in... What are we trying to do here? This is get unit. So if it's a gallon, it's a gallon. Yeah, okay, so we know that, and then it returns that. If it can't find that, by default it's going to be invalid unit. And also if the regex doesn't work, so this is based on result. Result is val regex.execute. I could technically let this pass, but then we would get that error. That was the problem. So I'd rather just return invalid unit if it doesn't find it. Is it an invalid unit though? I'm just trying to think. There wouldn't be a unit to begin with if it's just numbers. So I guess, yeah, if the regex fails, it is an invalid unit. Okay, so that's fine. And then it'll get through here if there is a unit, and if the unit doesn't exist in this list, then it will also default to invalid unit. Cool, and then we return that. Then the get returned unit is basically just, if it was a gallon, it becomes a liter. If it was a kilogram, it becomes a pound. So that also works. Spout unit we haven't done. Convert, we've got handle number, which does the conversion. And basically this is the formula, which we've also done. And the default will obviously be invalid unit once again, if there's no unit value. Oh, hold on. Unit value is the number, and the switch is based on the number. That's wrong. I think this used to be the type, because it's looking for case, which needs to be init unit, not init num. So switch needs to be init unit, so that if it's a gallon, that's what it needs to do. And then the result needs to be not init num, because we need to do the calculation. So basically all of these results need to change into unit value. So unit value, unit value, unit value, unit value, unit value, unit value. There you go. Okay, So that's correct now. So let's give it a try. Something like 2.5 milliliters would give us not a number. Why? Let's check something. Should have matched just fine. There's 2.5 and there's milliliter. So there's something else as well now. Great. So the num is invalid number. How did it become invalid number? So the num, where does the num reside? The num resides right at the top. So as we even get into this function, it's already invalid. So the moment we even get into the function, it's invalid. So the only place that can set invalid number is up here. So if the regex doesn't pass, it becomes invalid number. Is that it? I'm gonna log triggered here just to see if it's getting triggered. It shouldn't be getting triggered because that's valid. Let's see. It is getting triggered. The plot thickens. If not, valregex.execute input index 1. Okay, where are we using valregex? We're doing it there and we're resetting it there. We're doing it there, we're resetting it there. We're doing it there and we're resetting it there. So we're resetting it everywhere we're using it. So that shouldn't be an indexing issue. Valregex.execute on unless what is input? Num input. Input. I have to break this thing apart now. So num input is 2.5 ml, but that should have passed our regex. Right there, it passes. 2.5 ml. If I add a space, that doesn't change it. If I just do 2 milliliters, it's also invalid and it's also getting triggered. Fun. Before I test further, I wanna remove the test case. Yeah, just a test case. See if it's not something that's clashing there. No. Okay, cool. So it's not that. Let's see what it is doing though. valregex.execute before it returns. It's null. How is it null? Let's do without the... I just realized something now. No wonder, this needs to be outside of it like that. Oh my god. It's always the small things. There you go. Okay, now on to the next problem, which is cannot read property 1 of null on line 62. Now we're back to the same issue, which is it's getting here. If not, val regex.execute input. Return invalid number. So now it's getting here again, and it's trying to access what doesn't exist. What if we do test? So val regex.test. That'll be if it's true or false. We don't need to do what we're doing now. So if not, val regex dot, I think we can just get away with test. We don't need to execute it, because it can't execute what doesn't exist. That might be what's failing. I think that may very well be the case. So if we just do val regex.test the input, and we should get a true or false, as in does it work, based on the input that it's given. Wait, I put it in the wrong place now, didn't I? Val regex.test input. If not, so if it fails, it gets triggered, and we don't need to do that, and we just return invalid number. Otherwise, just go on as per normal. Please, just work the way you're supposed to work. It doesn't get triggered. I don't understand. Let me console log this. I need to understand this. Val regex.test input. Is it true or false? It should be false. Wait. No, it shouldn't be false. This is 2 milliliters. This should be fine. This should be fine. Shouldn't be an issue, so we should get true. So why is it failing? It's true. And it got triggered. Wait, what? I'm so confused. So this is true, and then this is if not true. It got. What is going on right now? Is it because of the? I don't understand. How is this happening? 2 milliliters, go. It's a valid value, but then it still got triggered. And then it's an invalid number. This thing's gonna drive me crazy. So, test input. And then if not, so if this is not true, log that and return invalid number. But it is true because we literally just saw it be true. So how can it be both true and false at the same time? How is that possible? Unless this is a weird thing. Apparently if the regex has the global flag set, test will advance the last index of the regex. Do we have the global on? Oh, we do. I don't think we need global. So if I just remove that, no wonder. It advances it, dumbass. Oh my god. It's a good thing I read the docs now. Because that was gonna drive me crazy. It's like, how can it be both true and false? Okay, it's... I think we don't need... I don't think we need to set the last index anymore. If there's not a global flag. I don't think I need to set last index each time. Let me just double check for execute. Let me just read what it says about it, about global values. Doesn't say anything about globals. Do not place a regular expression, literal, or regex reconstructor within the while condition, or it will create an infinite loop if there is a match due to the last index property being reset upon each iteration. Also be sure that the global flag G is set, or an infinite loop will occur here as well. If your regular expression uses a G flag, you can use the execute method multiple times to find successive matches in the same string, but we'll never have same strings. Okay, so we'll just leave it there. So with that being done, getNum is 2, but getUnit is invalid unit. Why would that be now? Because of the same thing that we just fixed now with the test. So remove that, and then here, if not valregex.test, the input, invalid unit, hold on, what is being put into the input? This should be it. So we should see milliliter as the unit. Still an invalid unit. Okay. What is your input then? Your input is... Wait, where's unit? Unit input is 2 milliliters, like that. Is that what we called it? Unit input? Yeah, we did. So, if that gets put in, there's your 2 and there's your milliliter. If I turn the global off, what happens? That shouldn't change anything, it just means we don't get a match there. For multi-flags, which we're not going to use. So that still should have been 2 and ml. Okay. So there's something else that's going on here. If not, valregex.test. How did we test the previous one? We did if not valregex.test input. So if not valregex.test input, which is the exact same thing, return invalid unit. But it shouldn't be that. It should be result equal to valregex.execute input 2. Which is... Well, let's find out what result is. Result. So we should see what the result is. The result is milliliters. Okay, cool. So we're getting somewhere. So that wasn't the issue. The issue now is in the case. So ml, which is a string, to lowercase shouldn't change anything. So it's ml. So then we go through ml. Ah, I see. I think we forgot milliliters. Whoops. No, we didn't forget it. Milliliters don't exist. I just want to add milliliters. It was never there to begin with. There's no milligrams, milliliters. There's only liters, kilograms, kilometers. Okay, so let's change this to kilogram then. There wasn't an issue. It just, the unit type doesn't exist. Oh my god. Okay, convert. So, kg, does it detect it as a unit? Yes, it does. Kilograms, return unit, pound. Perfect. Kilogram, pound, 2 kilograms is 4.4 pounds. Let's make sure that's correct. 2 kg to lbs, I think it is 4.40925. What do we get? 4.4092. Yeah, round it up, I guess. Google rounds it up. Okay. So that works. Cool. Any issues? Not that I can tell. So the number is 2, it's a kilogram, it will become a pound, and the pound value will be that. So that's working. Now let's see what happens if we add fractions. 2.5 pounds. What happens? It became 2.5, great. Only problem is that get num is now 2.5 instead of 2.5. Get unit is a kilogram, return unit is a pound, return number is 5.5, whatever that is. And the reason we needed it this way was for something else. Oh, for the calculations. Huh. I wonder what it expects get num to be. I think we should just leave it like that. I don't know if it will fail us. All I know is that the calculation is what matters. And that is correct. So far so good. So let's see what we do. Split the input, done. I can convert, done. If my unit of measurement is invalid, returned will be invalid unit, done. If my number is invalid, returned with will invalid number, done. If both are invalid, we'll do that. I can use fractions, decimals, or both in my parameter, i.e. 5, half, 2.5 over 6, but if nothing is provided, it will default to 1. Okay, so if I just enter ml, I keep doing that, milliliters doesn't exist, kg. So if I were to enter kg, it should work and it will be 1 kg to a pound, which we don't do right now. Okay, so how do we fix that logic? This is going to fail and it's going to be an invalid number. So how... Man, this is tricky. You know what we can do? We know it's invalid, but then we can go a step further and just check, is there a number? Is there a number? So we could literally just do something like \d. Dot test on input. If it's true, if there's a number, return input. Otherwise return 1. That was the requirement. So if there's a number, wait, let me just think about this. If there's a number, return that number, otherwise return 1. What about invalid number? When do we return invalid number? Ah, we need like a default. So if there's a number, return that number, otherwise return... So the only time it wouldn't be... Okay, so... Let's try this. If not... dot test input. So if there's not a number, do we return invalid number? Else if so if there's no number, return invalid number. Else if there is a number, return input, right? I'm just trying to think of something now. When would you ever... This is so tricky. Because we can't check if there's no number. Because if you just enter, let's say, kilogram, it needs to convert automatically to pound and assume the value is 1. So when would you ever get an invalid number? Because let's say you enter nothing and you enter kg. That's still valid. So how are you supposed to get an invalid number? What would constitute to invalid? Because if it's a number, it's a number. 5 minus 2, maybe, is invalid? How does our regex handle that? 5 minus 2 ml. It's only going to grab the 2. So you know what I just realized now? We should wrap this in anchors. We need to anchor it down so that it has to be at the beginning of the string. also it has to end with that. We also need to turn multi-line on just to test, so that would fail. So that would have been fine, but if you entered anything else, that would be an invalid number. Arby's, hey, Arbia, Arbea, is that right? Are negative numbers handled? The thing is, what about temperatures? You could have, temperatures could be negative. Let's say you had 0 degrees Fahrenheit, right? That would be negative 17.77 in Celsius. So negative numbers would be fine. And let's say you somehow could like change gravity to have negative mass, so however you managed to set it out, you still wanted to calculate, you know, it would still be a valid unit. So I think negatives are fine. I think it's more the sense of you added 5 minus 2, so you're basically trying to do an arithmetic expression which wouldn't work. Still trying to figure it out. So I think that would be the case. So I need to anchor it down basically. So our regex needs to change, and who knows what it's going to break now. But let's anchor it. So that if I were to add that minus 2 in there, so if it fails now, that's because I think it's too restrictive. I think what we need to do is we need to make the number part optional, which is just gonna like mess with everything. Because at the end of the day, what we need is the ability to, if there is no number, assume it's 1, so long as there's a type. So if I do that and make it optional, I should be able to do something like ml, and that will match. kg, that will match. But 1 kg will also match. So that then group 1 would be empty. And then all we check is, if it's empty, assume it's 1. But this regex will still pass, it will just be empty. So I think that's going to be the best solution at the end of the day. So let us make that optional. Then this should pass. So we shouldn't even get into this at all. Let me just set this to how it was and undo this. Because it's going to try to get to index 1, and index 1 is going to be, it's going to be undefined. You're going to see now. Index 1 of result. It should be undefined. Let's try that. So if I just enter kg, yeah, there you go. Index 1 is undefined. And then you obviously can't trim undefined. So that's perfect, because it's still a valid value. The regex worked, but there was no value. So what we need to do is I wonder if I can do this, the OR, logical OR. Because if I could do that, that would be like such a cheap way, such a quick way to do it. Yeah, there you go. So now it's 1. But now, because it's 1 as a number, I'm going to assume it, yeah, it cast it to an integer. So because of that, you can't trim it because it is a string function. Trim is a string function, and we set it to an integer. And that's because when the user inputs their values, it's all treated as a string, because obviously it's a mixed case. You can enter alphanumerical characters. So the solution would then, I guess, be to just have 1 as a string, or change our logic on how we handle the numbers, which would be more complex. So in this case, let's just make it 1 as a string. So now it will default to 1, so that if you enter 1 kg, it will just automatically convert it to that, so that you get 2.2 pounds. Let's just see if that's correct. 1 kg to pound is how many? 2 point, yeah, there you go. That worked. That was some point of. Okay. So we solved that big problem. So then if nothing is provided, we'll default to 1, which we've done. Great. I'm just worried about how do you get an invalid number? Oh, we already said if I do 1 minus 5 kg, that should be an invalid number. There you go. The number, invalid number. And then the unit is apparently also an invalid unit. But I think the only reason it's invalid is because the entire regex that we're checking on would have failed. So let's see, where are we checking for get unit here? Which is if not regex.test input, return invalid unit. Yeah, so the regex is failing. But that doesn't mean the unit is invalid. Huh. This is a tricky one now. Because so what did we enter? We entered 1 minus 5 kg. We still want it to be that we grabbed a kg, even if that's invalid. And the reason for that is because of the match beginning of the string. If I remove the end anchor, oh, because it's going to be the 1 to 5 from the beginning. And if I remove the anchor, the problem with that is then we'll get the first match of a valid expression, which is the 5, and then we get 5 kg, which is not what we want. That's why it has to match from the beginning of the string. What if we actually do this? The number has to match from the beginning of the string. Wouldn't that work? No, because then that's telling it that's the end. Unless we put it in the group. Would that work if I put it in the group? Like that? Just like that. There. So it has to match from the beginning if it's in that group. So now you still get 2 milliliters, 2 milliliters. You get the milliliters here, but group 1 is empty because it was invalid. Yeah, there you go. So just add the anchor start at the beginning inside the bracket. Cool. So in our regex, we move that to there, and we remove that. So that now in get unit, it's going to be undefined here. Wait. No, because we're checking index 2, which is the unit. Index 1 will be undefined, but that's fine. We already handled that. So now we should still get the unit, which is kg, except that it will be invalid number. So... oh no, that's a default. We didn't enter... wait, what? So confused. Try that again. Why is it 1? If it's... oh, because... oh... I see. Okay. I need to fix our logic, because we basically told it... get the number, and if there's no number, set it to 1. The problem is, even if it's invalid, How do they expect us to have invalid number then? Because if we're using a regex to match, if we're using a regex to match and we don't get a match, it's going to be empty. And if you omit the value, it's also going to be empty. So then we can't use the regex there. Well, we need a pre-check, which is what? Input is the entire number. So I don't think I need this test anymore, because the way that we did the regex, it should never be an issue. Is there a way to somehow see if they entered something before that? The only way to know would be if we included it, if we had 3 groups. Because that anchor, while it helps us, removes that. Group 1 is supposed to be the value, group 2 is supposed to be the unit. How do we get this part? Maybe that should be group 1. And for that, it's if it's anything what if I do a negative look ahead for this? And if it's a positive look ahead for that? And the reason for that is there's a hyphen there. And if I do W, what if I do any character like that? Then 1 to 5 would be there. No, because we want it to be numbers. We also want it to be words. So basically alphanumeric with what? So there it would be in group 1. Otherwise, oh, so it'll all be in group 1, which is not a good thing. I think that's the problem with limiting myself to just a regex. What other way can we solve this without a regex? So they input something, we notice that it's random stuff like ABC. ABC is not a number. What if we just coerce it to number? Oh, because there might be like kg or something. What if we extract all the... What if we just try to look for a number? So something like search. Or isn't there contains or something? Is there contains? Is it match? Because there's so many now that I've worked on. There was match, but not match. Unless we don't use regex and we just use the string, because it is a string. Was it match? Searches a string for a match against a regular expression and returns the matches. I don't think we want match, we want or something else. I think it was includes. And then we'll return true or false, yeah. Can I use a regex though? Inside of it? Can you use a regex in it though? Because I want to have a regex. Was it the same as match? Oh, okay, so it is string.match. If input.match oops. Can I not use? So let me just double check that that will work. If we have just a number, so 2 kg, 2 minus 5 kg, so there will be a number. So if there's a we want it if there's not a number. So if there's no number at all, then make it a 1. Else, invalid number, yeah. Okay, so if not input.match a number, log no number could be found. Let's first see if the logic works. So now we're just going to enter kg, right? So just kg. Then it should say no number could be found. Great. What if I enter something valid? 1 kg. Everything is fine. Good. What if I say 1 minus 5 kg where it's invalid? Okay, so that still works, but there's no further logic on that. So if there's no number, this is where we need to set the default. And where have we been setting that? There. If not val regex.test, return invalid number. And what would actually happen in our current regex? The 1 minus 5, it still matches except group 1 is empty. So if it's empty, we can assume it's a 1. If it doesn't pass the regex, but it will pass the regex, that's the problem. That's why we said we're just going to completely get rid of this. If not input.match, we're back in the same situation because we can't assume it's wrong. We can just assume it didn't get added. So if there's no number, we know for a fact there's no number. Factually, there is no number. So make it a 1. Okay? That's done. Then we should just return. We shouldn't do the rest. Else, this is where the else comes in now. This is where we do invalid number. Yeah, that's where we do that. So let's have result as a variable. Let result equal to, no, just let result. And then result equal to 1 as a string. Else, we don't need that if there. We need this. Val regex.execute 1. And if it can't execute correctly at index 1 because there's no value, it's going to be an invalid number. And then we don't need this if statement. And we don't need that. And we don't need that. And we don't need that. And then finally return result.trim. Oh, we also need to reset result equal to, it's good. Okay, cool. Result equal to val regex. Cool. Perfect. So then that should be it. So now it's an invalid number, which is great. But the unit is kilogram. Yes! That's what we want to see. And then if we enter just kilogram, we get no number could be found, but we set number to 1. So we get 1 kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds. Perfect. And if we do enter a unit, let's say like 3 kg, then we basically get the formula. Cool. So that's working. Now we can handle invalid numbers, finally. Oh, that took a while. So if there's no numbers, we set a default. Then we do the regex. And if there's nothing in index 1, because we already handled there not being a number. We're just going to assume that it's because it's invalid, because if it was valid, there would have been a number. So everything else that's not valid is invalid. Logic, right? And therefore it's invalid number. Cool. That works. Cheese. I'm going to leave all of these until we actually complete the project, then I'll clean it up afterwards. I did not think I would spend this much time on all of this logic. Let's just start getting an input out. I'll pretty up things tomorrow because clearly I'm not going to be able to finish everything today. So let's just make sure we pass all of these. If my unit, we pass that. If the number is invalid, we pass that. If both are invalid, I still need to figure out where that needs to return. We can calculate. My return will consist of init num, init unit, return num, return unit, and string spelling out units in format. Init num, init units converts to return num, return units, with the result rounded to 5 decimals.
Steve West 012 is following the family.
Steve West, hey, thank you so much for that follow. I appreciate it. How are you doing? We still need to pass the test tomorrow, so yeah, I'm definitely going to have to continue this tomorrow. But the logic's there. Let us get something in a response form. My return will consist of init num, init unit, return num, return unit. We had someone's example here. I think it was this one, was it? Was it this one? Because their example doesn't work, and we need someone's example to see what the return value will be. Yeah, it was this one. So it's supposed to be API. Let's do this. / API convert. So it's supposed to be okay. So init num, that's what they meant by that. So return needs to consist of init num initial units. Oh, that's a string. Okay, so the return will be init num, init unit, return num, return unit, and then a string spelling out units in format init num, init initial units converts to return num, return units, with the result rounded to okay, cool. So let's get a return thing going so long. That should be easy enough. So in our API, we should have init num, init unit, return num, return unit. We need string, toString, convert handler, get string. So that's going to be the string. So the get string, wait, what is it calling? It's calling get string. Where's get string? There's get string. Get string is oh, this was me trying to do something else. Okay, and the format is supposed to be, it's supposed to look like this. Init num initial units converts to return num return units. Okay, so what does the example look like? So kg, they should have handled that. 1 kilograms converts to, okay, cool, great. So the result is, let's do this in a string literal. So init num initial units. What is initial units? Init units, I guess. Yeah, that's what they mean. Init unit converts to return num return units. And I'm going to add a full stop because it bothers me, but watch them fail us because we have that full stop. Actually, I'm going to leave the full stop out because I probably will forget that I added a full stop and then wonder why we're failing. I'll do that afterwards. So that's result, and then we return result. So if everything were to work correctly, That would be toString. And then all we need to do is res.json. Was it res.send.json? Was it res.send? No, it was res.json, I think. And then I'm just gonna test something. And what is it supposed to look like? These things. Let's just try with one thing. Init num. Do we have init num as is? Yeah, we do. So just init num then. And then let the response be that. I don't know if our API is... Oops, wrong file. And then let us go into roots, API. I think our root should be set up. API convert. I think so. Let's try it. So this is ours. Let's open up a new one. And then we go to API convert input equal to kg. There you go. Yeah, cool. Sweet. So we got it working. So we want init num, init unit, return num, return unit, and then toString, which is the string, but we need to call it string. Because it's supposed to look like init num, init unit, return unit, and string, which is toString. Could have just called it string. I don't know why they called it toString. But yeah, that should be it. That's the full API route. And then if we call it, there you go, 1 kilogram, return num, 2.2, return unit, pound, string, 1 kilogram converts to 2. Blah, 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 blah pounds, except the requirement was we needed to round it down, with the result rounded down to 5 decimals. So I think that will only happen in a fraction. So where we have our number, we need to toFixed it. toFixed so where can we do that? Is this a string still? These are numbers. So would I do toFix 5? Yeah, toFix 5. Okay. So when we return the result, toFixed 5. I think that's literally the only change we need. So let's go to convert handler, and then let's see how that goes. So if I rerun this, yeah, there you go, 2.20462. But now that's a string. So what if we convert it back to a number? What if we convert the unit as well to a number in the JSON side? I wonder. Should we do that? Make it a number? Just number it like that. Can we do that? I can't do it in. Oh, okay. This is going to be tricky because we need init num to be passed on into other areas as well. I just feel it would look nice being formatted as a number and not as a string. And I really want that. And if I want something bad enough, I need to make it happen. So should we just mutate it? So after everything's done, we just mutate it. That's a constant. There. And what was the other one? It's init num and return num. Return num equal to number return num. So we could just mutate it afterwards, and then when you call JSON, these should now be numbers, and prior to that there were strings. So let's see what happens now. There you go. So now it's a 1, and that's a 2.20462. Perfect. So what if I do 14 kg? Now it's null? Why is it null? Oh, because it passes it as an integer, doesn't it? What does number do? An object that represents a number of any kind. All JavaScript numbers are 64-bit floating point numbers. So then why would 0.25... Or maybe it's... I messed up the query, hold on. No, it's not. 1 divided by 2. That should have been fine. Let's see what init num was. Init num was init num on the API. Where's the API? There it is. Clear. Where's init num? That's 1. Oh, because it didn't get converted to a number. That's why. Because I'm leaving it in such a way because I needed to use it in other places. I don't think we need to do that anymore, actually. Let's go back to convert handler. Who needed it? Convert needed it. And the reason why we had it was in handle number, we're splitting it so that we can handle fractions and stuff. Wait, so what does this return? Because this is actually where we need it to be. This is convert. Who calls convert? Who calls convert? Convert. So return num. Okay. So init num. You know what I just realized? This entire like handle number, I think we should put that in init num. I think we should do that. And then don't use that, and then don't use unit value. And that will be based on init num. Let's just hope I'm right about this. I could have just done a find and replace. It's fine. I'm gonna take the lazy route. Because then if I give it the entire number, the fraction, everything that it needs, then it should be fine. So in num, in get num, We need to somehow make this work here. Don't ask me how, but we need to. So then we need to call handle num. What did I call it before? Was it num or something? Unit value, that's what it was. Unit value equal to handle number and then give it result, because result is what we finally figured out, you know, what it is. We also need to handle what if you do give it, what if it gets invalid number? What will it do if it, you know? And then we return, and then unit value is handle number result. And then we just trim. Well, I don't think we need to trim. That's the thing, we needed to trim it prior. Then let's do result.trim before you get it back. So that that function works, and then we don't need to return that. We return I'm just wondering how we're gonna handle the invalid number, because result can say invalid number. So I could do an if invalid number, return invalid number, but it just sounds like, oh no, actually I got it. If num equal to invalid number, right? Just return num. Return exactly what it started with. So that your unit value equal to handle number the result, and then all you return is unit value. And then here's the best part, get this. So now we can do unit value and all we need to make sure is that when we return, I want to make sure this is not a string anymore. Let's hope this still works. I changed so many things right now. The 3 kg becomes 6 pounds. That seems to be fine. No kgs entered, no actual value, becomes 1. Great. And then something invalid. 1 minus 4, 5 kg becomes invalid number, but it's still a kilogram. Perfect. So now here we shouldn't have to change anything in the API, like these things. We shouldn't change that at all. No logic should be changed there. I need to make sure I just copy that over to the server like that, and then we should be able to run this. So that if it's like 1 kg, it's now a number. Great. Okay. And then if it's, let's say, 1/4 kg, it's 0.25. Great! Yes! So I don't have to do anything. Perfect. But now return number is a string. So we have to just figure out why that is, but that's in a different section. Return, I think it's convert. Actually, I think convert is return number, right? Return num is convert, yes. So why is this returning a string? Why? Init num is a convert. Init num is a, it should be a number. It should not be a string. So let's just see what's happening. 2 kg convert. It is, where's convert? Where's convert? Convert init num there, 2, but 2 what? Convert init num type of init num. Is it a string or is it a number? It should be a number. Type of is a number. Okay, so if you're a number, why the hell are you a string? Why the hell? So when I do 2 kg, it's supposed... Why is the return num? Oh wait, no, you come in as a number. Oh, because 2 fixed... 2 fixed, let's just do number, result 2 fixed afterwards. Let's just see if this will resolve the issue. There you go. And 1, so 1/4 kg, there you go, 0. Okay, perfect. So init num is now a number, return now is perfect. And then what if it's invalid, like 1 minus 4 kg? Then you get invalid number, kilogram, return number, invalid number kilogram converts to nan pound. What happens if it's invalid? I haven't checked with this person's one. What if I do 1 minus 4 kg? What then? Convert. Nothing happens. Wait, what? It actually did something? It was actually doing maths? Minus 3 kilogram converts to... God damn it. 1s minus 4, invalid unit. It's not really an invalid unit, but I see what they're doing, so that's the return. Okay, so 1 minus 4 should be invalid number. Init unit should be kilogram. Let me do it in their API to see what change they do, how it's supposed to be. So if it's 1s, oh, it literally just returns invalid unit. Okay, so unless everything is valid. Oh, okay. I see. So we would need a if statement where basically if type of init num is a number and type of return num it just seems like so much logic. There shouldn't be really any logic. We need that in the get string, I think. But that's the response that we're gonna give. I think that's something I need to sort out tomorrow.
O_Chronic is following the family.
Oh, Chronic, hey, thanks for the follow. But essentially we would need a... We know that init num will always return a number. It has to. So we can do something like if type of init num not equal to I'm just trying to think. We could do is not a number, or we could just do literally just check against number, I guess. So if type of init num not equal to number, we need to return res.send. We could just do res.send whatever is in the variable of init num, because we know it's not a number, so that should send what init num is, which is invalid number. So let's try that real quick. And we should return out of there, return res.send. So let's store that in the API and check. So if I give it an invalid number in our API, which is wine minus 4kg, there we go, invalid number, great. And then I don't like doing these ifs. If type of, what was the other one? Return num not equal to number, return res.send return num. So that way we'll do it in order of, you know, what failed. If the number is in, wait, what are we doing? Return num would have returned, let me check something quick. What would have returned before? Update. Oh, I didn't update it, did I? Did I? I did. Maybe I didn't, forgot. Okay, there. So init num will be invalid number, but return num will be null. Okay, so we don't need one for return num. We need it if there's an invalid number or if there's an invalid unit. Damn. Okay, so for the second one, if return unit equal to invalid, was it invalid unit for the invalid unit type? Yeah, it is invalid unit. So if return unit equal to invalid unit, then just return unit. So those are the two cases. If it's not a valid number or if it's not a valid unit. There was also one more though, which was if both are invalid, return invalid number and unit. Okay. We need to actually check both first, because if is going to be triggered on the first one that matches. So if type of init num not equal to number and, how you doing, Chronic? And return unit equal to invalid unit, then return res.send this, because that's not something we can do from the conversion. I mean, maybe we could separate the logic afterwards, but let's just get it to what it should be, which is this. If it's not a number and return unit is an invalid unit, invalid number and unit is the response. If it's an invalid number, return invalid number. If it's an invalid unit, return invalid unit. Otherwise, res.json, the rest of the stuff. Okay, so this should give us invalid unit, invalid number. This should still give us invalid number. Well, apparently not. Interesting. Result to fixed is not a function. Okay, so we broke something. Interesting. On line 300. Is this in convert? This is convert, isn't it? Is it? Is this convert? Yes, it is. So in convert we had convert init num, which is invalid number. Init num is a string. So what we were trying to do, it was invalid number. It tried to find it. It doesn't match it, so the result is invalid unit. And then you try to coerce it into a number, which you couldn't. So we need to take that into account. Well, why don't we just return immediately? If init num equal to invalid number, because we can't do anything with it, return invalid unit, I guess. No, not invalid unit. Just return. Wait, so if you have an invalid number, but it's still a valid unit, you just can't do the conversion. Because it's still going to try to convert on init unit. And that's the problem. Init unit is not a number. So it's going to be like, oh cool, I found a kilogram. So let's take a string and divide it by, you know, a number, which is going to give you an error. So we essentially just need a return, I guess. What else can we do? Yeah, so that gives us invalid number and unit, which is correct. And then if we have a valid unit, valid number but invalid unit, it still doesn't find it, and we're still trying to fix it. I feel like I'm just sticking this together with duct tape at this point. Find a problem, solve the problem, find a problem, solve the problem. Okay, so if it comes in with an invalid number, what are you supposed to do? You can't convert, so you return, but that means return num ends up being undefined. But that's fine because it would have triggered invalid number anyway. So we just return. Then you get here. So let's say you do have a valid number now, but an invalid unit type. So then we got here, but now you're trying to convert number on a string, which is not going to work. So we need to do probably a check of if result type of number, then wait, will it be a number? It should be, yeah. Yeah, it definitely should be. Then we can do this. Number result to fixed 5. Result equal to number. Result to fixed 5. Sorry, and the other way around. Type of result equal to number. Wait. Yeah. Else we just return the value, we just leave it. So if type of result equal to number, format it. Otherwise just return result. So in general just return result. Like that. But now it's complaining because so close. This is the last thing, like the last piece of this puzzle. Well, actually there's nothing wrong, just my linter doesn't like this, because I'm returning here, and then I'm trying to return later on, and arrow function expected no return value. What if I just leave it? What if I just let it go through? What then? Then it's gonna be not a number, because you can't, have a string convert. Yeah, that won't work. And then it's just gonna return not a number. We just need to leave the function. Oh, why is this linter complaining? What if I have it in the else? Will it complain then if I have it in the else because of the return? Can I do that? Will it stop complaining then? Why the hell do you remove it? Unnecessary return statement. I'm so confused by this thing now. What if I do this? If not init num equal to invalid number. Else return. Or just that. Yeah, okay. I think we worked around the logic. Let's try that now. So, invalid unit. Great, because DKG doesn't exist. What if we make it an invalid number? Invalid number and unit. Great. What if we just make it an invalid number? Invalid number. Woohoo! What if it's a valid number? 14 kg. We get 14 kilogram. Return unit is pound. Where the hell is return unit value? Where the hell did that go? API? Hello? Return num. Where the hell's return num? Return num doesn't exist. Where's return num? Where the hell? Return num doesn't exist? If not init num equal to invalid, return result. I don't think we need to do that. We're supposed to return result out here. Like that. That's the API, isn't it? No, that's the right one. Never mind. Let's try that again. 14 kg. Where the hell is return num? convert result. Result. What is convert result? Undefined. How? If not init num equal to invalid number, which it's not, switch init unit, which it has. What are we converting? kg. So kg is kilogram, which it would have gotten. Init num divided by, that's result. Result equal to. Let's log here. Result. I want to see if we butchered it with the other thing now. So let's look for result pre. Result pre. There is no result pre. Interesting. Is it invalid number? Is it not getting in here? No, it has to be getting in here. So it gets convert result, which is here, but it doesn't get this. It doesn't get result pre. What the hell? What? Oh, is it the break, maybe? No, but then convert result would have been result. I'm so confused. Let's see if we get the init num. We don't get the init num. It's like this thing is just doing its own thing. What the hell? The if statement is failing. That's the only thing that I can think of. It's the if statement. Oh, I'm a dumbass. If init num not equal to invalid number. Oh my god. It's been a long day, okay? It's been a long day. There you go. Beautiful. Okay, let's start the test from all over again because I messed up. So, KDG, invalid unit. Great. Invalid number and unit. Great. Invalid number but correct unit. Great. Valid unit. But let's try like miles this time. Is 22 kilometers. 14 miles converts to kilometer. Great, great stuff. And then I want to know fractions. A quarter. Great, quarter mile. How about half a mile? Great stuff. What about 2.5 miles? So 2 and then a space and a half. 2.5 miles. Beautiful! It actually works. Everything is working. Finally. Jeez. Okay, then all that's left tomorrow is to the string part. Handle plural case, aka num greater than 1 equal to miles kilograms, etc. I should probably add it as to do, else I'll forget. There we go. So that's all that we need to do tomorrow, is make that look prettier. So instead of it saying, you know, 2.5 mile, 2.5 miles would just be, it's a nice to have, but the logic works, the calculations work, the response of the API works. It's working as it should. Now all we need is a little front end and to actually set up the tests. I mean, we just did our own tests and it works, but they want us to use unit tests as well as functional tests. So that's what we're going to set up tomorrow. And yeah, we'll be done. Oh, I didn't realize that the front end thing is converting here. I didn't realize that. Check that out. Look at that. It shows in the front end. 2 kilogram converts to, and then there you can see the response. And then if I enter something like 2 minus 43 kg, it should say invalid number. That's perfect. And then an invalid unit, and then invalid unit and type. I didn't realize that it's also on the front end. Beautiful. Let's actually see if we're passing any tests. See how many tests we pass. So we got that, we got that. It's weird why that didn't work. I have to just check how they're trying to query it. So yeah, none of these are passing. If my unit of measurement is invalid, return will be invalid unit. At least that's correct. So I'm just gonna have to check tomorrow why some of these tests are failing. But yeah, cool. I'm gonna end things off here for now, and I'll see you guys on the next stream. Bye for now.